Thank you. I actually appreciate that too, because this is like nice, like little equilibrium. I don't want to be yelling at people that were wearing this mask and like being punished for being like a disability advocate. And I think to advocacy, I think that's a good transition. I think it's about justice, and justice takes sides. As my shirt says.
Good morning, everyone. Kyle Smealy. I'm the policy director for the San Francisco Community Land Trust. When I think about advocacy, I think about power building and strategic coalitions.
My name is Ben Murphy. I'm with Public Advocates. I'm on our state policy team. I was going to say power building for lobbying, but I think about strength building and organizing. That's what comes to mind when thinking about advocacy.
Hi, I'm Christina Oatfield. I'm an attorney and I do a lot of work with the network on legislation and policy. And I think advocacy is something that's very, very, very important for organizations represented in this room to do. That was more than one or two words. Sorry.
You already heard from me. I will recuse myself.
Hey everyone, I'm Amanda. I use all pronouns. I'm with Urban Habitat and I'm thinking of a marathon, not a sprint.
Just say hello to folks who just joined us. We're just doing a quick intro, name, pronouns, and one or two words you think of when you hear advocacy or lobbying.
Hi, good morning. Zach Murray with ACE, and I think of storytelling and the power of our members.
Hi, everyone. Maribel Nunez with Inland Equity Community Land Trust, Executive Director, pronouns she, her. Ditto to everything that folks said, but I would add disruption and outcome.
Zarita Jones, board member of the network, also with Liberty, El Sereno, and Japua Community Land Trust. And I think of CLT funding.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ruby Gordillo, and I'm with the El Sereno Community Land Trust. I'm a tenant rep there, and I think of community support and disruption.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Shakina Samaya Thomas. I am a Oakland Community Land Trust resident homeowner, along with my husband, resident board member, and board member of CLT Action. And when I think of advocacy, I think of protecting and improving the lives of vulnerable populations.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chayo from the El Sereno Community Land Trust. And when I think of advocacy, I always think of the children because we're, setting them up for the 7 generations future. So.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sotiong. I'm with Apsara, is with David right here with me, Asian Pacific Self-Development and Residential Association. We're from Stockton. I go with him, his. When I think about advocacy, I think of 2 words. One is the solution. Second one, I would say change. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Leslie Salvador Leon. I come here from Fresno. I work with the Lowell Community Development Corporation as a community engagement coordinator. My pronouns are she, they. And when I think of advocacy, lobbying, I think of narrative building.
Good morning, everyone. Juan Reynoso with the California Wellness Foundation, he, him. When I think of advocacy, I think of very long-term battles and in it for the long haul.
Good morning. I'm Veronica Beatty with the Sacramento Community Land Trust and the California Coalition for Rural Housing. I use she, her pronouns. And when I think about policy and advocacy and lobbying, I think about fights.
My name is Natividad Carrera. I'm with the El Sereno Community Land Trust. I'm a board member there. I use he, him pronouns. I think of office visits and the stick and the carrot.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nathan Nunez. I use he, they pronouns. I'm with a working group for a Southeast LA Community Land Trust called Sembrando el Sureste. And when I think of policy advocacy, I think of like empowering our community, like getting them to know what's actually happening and affecting them.
Thank you. My name is Gabby Nunez. I work for Trust South LA. When I use she, her pronouns, and when I think of advocacy, I think about people, impact, and change.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jamie Fanous. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the policy and organizing director at CAF, the Community Alliance with Family Farmers. When I think of advocacy, I think of power. I think about rebalancing power.
Hi, my name is Ingrid Brostrom. I'm the program director for climate and the rural economy at the UC Merced Community and Labor Center. And when I think of advocacy, I think of strategy, power building, and change.
Good morning. My name is Oralia Maceda with UC Merced Community and Labor Center. And when I think in advocacy is, for me, is community participation and change.
Good morning, everyone. Victor Garcia, he, him. I'm a program officer with the James Irvine Foundation based in San Francisco. My grant making is here in the Central Valley. When I think of advocacy, I think of the folks who have come before us, who have led those fights, and I also think of our shared future.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Laura Blakely. I'm a volunteer attorney with the Mountain View Community Land Trust. And when I think of advocacy, I think of trying to affect change at the governmental level.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. I really, really appreciate that. And there were a bunch of themes. We heard a lot about power, storytelling, community, children, but we also heard, you know, the backroom deals and redlining and, you know, like, so we know when we think about advocacy and lobbying, these are tools that can be used for good in our communities, but they're also tools that have been used to harm our communities. And it's really up to us to put our fingers on that scale of the first set of things. So I appreciate folks sharing. There's really sort of two core premises of this workshop and our approach that's going to guide our conversation today. One is that when we talk about state legislative work, of course, we're trying to do things like pass bills. But our first premise for today is that we are really trying to build long-term power for change. Because we know today we don't have the power to make the kind of change our communities need. And if we're serious about transformation, we're going to have to build that power for the future. So that's the first premise. The second premise is the most important things that happen to influence state policy don't happen in Sacramento. They happen in our communities at the community level. Now, Sacramento is important, and we want folks to come up to Sacramento and come to lobby days and come to meetings, but we actually think what happens in all of your communities is more important than what happens in Sacramento. So those are our two sort of like guiding themes for today. And I'm going to start off with a little like super quick sort of power mapping 101 to sort of orient us. And I'll cover a couple things some people are going to know, but we want to sort of create a common foundation as we go into our small groups. Because if we want to influence legislation in California, we need to know a couple of things, including how shit gets done in Sacramento. So as we're building our strategies, we're targeting them smartly. So a couple of questions first, like some real simple, hopefully questions to get folks on the same page. When we talk about the state legislature in California, how many houses do we have? Just yell out, how many houses of the legislature? 2, what are they? Senate and Assembly. Okay, good. We're gonna get a little bit harder. How many members of the legislature are there? Okay, if you, come on, if you're a professional, you know. Okay, how many in, let's say, how many in the Assembly? Anybody? We got 60, almost. 80 in the Assembly. How many in the Senate? 40. Okay, it's gonna get a little harder, although there's a trick for this one. How many people are in each legislative district? Let's do it with the Senate. This is the easy one. How many people in each Senate district? Roughly. Residents. Now, say it again? 1 million, right. So this is not that hard because We have roughly 40 million residents in California. We have 40 Senate districts, so that math is pretty easy. You think about a Senate district, 1 million people basically live in each Senate district. It's twice as many assembly districts, so therefore 500,000 people. Okay. Who is the leader? Who are the two leaders of those chambers, the Assembly and the Senate? What's the leader of the Assembly? The Speaker, right? The Assembly Speaker is the leader of the Assembly, elected by Assembly members. We elect our Assembly members, they elect Speaker to lead them. In the Senate, what's it called? It's called the pro tem, which is a sort of weird thing, because I think technically, right, the Lieutenant Governor is sort of technically the President of the Senate, sort of like, right? So the actual leader of the Senate is called the Senate President Pro Tem. And usually we call them the pro tem. And if you want to be really cool, you can call them the PT, right? But the pro tem is the leader of the Senate, again, elected by senators to lead that body. And why are we saying this in terms of who those people are? It's because we're going to start really honing in on power mapping, is understanding who are the people that can give us what we want. And like, I come out of training tradition from the Midwest Academy, which some people may be familiar with. And there's a particular method of power mapping that I think can be very powerful. And one of the things we do is we identify targets. And targets are the people who can give us what we want. So to have a smart advocacy strategy, we better know the people who can give us what we want, right? And a principle of a target is it's always a person or a group of individuals. Target is never a body, it's never a committee, it's never a group of people, it's always a set of individuals. So we need to know who are the people who can give us what we want. So I want to just do sort of a quick example to help us think about identifying our targets. And we're going to talk a little bit about the legislative process. And I think the secret to the legislative process is it's really not that complicated. Some people may have seen there's like this slide that is sometimes used in legislative trainings that has like 87 different things and arrows, and like I hate that. I think we should never use that. I think that should be outlawed. That's like so disempowering for people to see that. And it's true, but like 99% of us, what we need to know to be super, super effective advocates is very simple. So that's what we're going to focus on today. But in order to do this, we're going to try to make it concrete and sort of use a bit of a case study. I just want an idea of what is the kind of bill that we want to pass in the state legislature? Anybody? Funding. Let's stay away from budget because we're gonna talk budget separately. Let's talk about something that not necessarily about funding, but what's another policy we would want to pass? Rent control. Are people cool if we do rent control? Okay, so statewide rent control mandated every jurisdiction. That's a great idea. Okay, so there we go, repeal Costa-Hawkins. So we have a relatively big group, so I'm sorry if everyone can't see this great. But these are the only things I think that are essential that you know about the legislative process. And again, we're going to be thinking about identifying targets. So the first thing that happens, we're going to have a rent control campaign right now, is a legislator needs to introduce that bill, needs to write it and introduce it. Does anyone have an idea of a legislator who we want to introduce our bill? Anyone in your community you think would be with us? Okay, Mia Bonta, and she's in the, well, no, the Assembly or Senate? Assembly, okay, Assembly Member Bonta from Oakland, great idea. So Assemblymember Bonta is going to introduce our bill. It's going to get a number. She's an Assembly member, so it's going to be an AB, Assembly Bill. Assembly Bill 123. Senator would be an SB 456, right? So now we have AB 123. We got it introduced. It's going to go to a policy committee to be considered. Maybe in this case, the Housing and Community Development Committee would likely be where we'd see that kind of bill, right? It's going to get considered and voted on by the members of that committee. It may go to a second or even a third policy committee. That's the only sort of permutation here. It's going to go to one or more policy committees, okay? Then in 99% of cases, it's going to go to the Appropriations Committee, where they're going to consider budgetary impacts. But the secret to appropriations is it's also just like a dark place where things go to die, and where leadership says, we don't want that bill, and you don't know why, it's not in public. So this is a tough place. This is a tough place where a lot happens behind the scenes, and we got to be smart, right? If we can get it out of appropriations, it goes to the floor for a vote, in this case in the Assembly, of all 80 Assembly members on the floor to vote up or down. In most cases, a simple majority, wins the vote. There's a couple exceptions, but in most cases. Now, if we win the vote on the assembly floor, we just do the same thing over in the Senate, right? So it's just a repeat. Policy committee in the Senate, appropriations committee, floor, okay? Same thing. And then if we get votes in both the assembly and the Senate, it goes to the governor's desk. He typically has 30 days to sign your veto. Okay, this is all the basics you need to know. Does this make sense to people? Okay, not super complicated. Yeah. Yes, right. So what this says is first house, second house. So if it starts in the Senate, it would go, the Senate process first, then the assembly process, right? So whichever kind of bill it is, it starts on that side. Yeah. No, if it dies, it dies. Sometimes you can sort of park things for the next year. We call it a 2-year bill. So there's some things which they sort of know, like we need more time or we don't have the votes, we're going to park it and we can bring it back the next year. But generally, if you don't get out of the committee, it's dead. So then you got to wait till the next year. You can reintroduce it, right? So there's a needle that has to be thread.
Yeah. I was just going to tell you guys right now, everything is on the governor's desk. It has until October 13th. We are effectively done with those inquiries. So everybody is focused on getting things signed or vetoed before October 13th.
Okay, so the last part of what I want to talk about before we start breaking out is the reason we share this is because now we want to identify targets, right? So we have a rent control bill. We want to figure out who can give us what we want, who can help us get that thing passed. So now we all know a little bit about the legislative process. If we didn't, who are the key people that are our targets in our rent control campaign? Okay, so our committee, right? Let's say it's going to housing community development. Now remember, a target can never be a committee. Target's always a person. The assembly members who sit on the housing committee. Now, who in particular? So what we're getting at, and remember we talked about bills might go to more than one policy committee. So let's say, for the sake of this argument, it's going to go to housing, and then it's going to go to judiciary, right? So for this example, we have 2 policy committees, right? Housing and judiciary. Now, Shakina's identified the members of the committee. There's one person in particular we want to pay attention to. Any ideas who that is? The chair, right? Every committee has a chair. And let's be honest, these are not democratic committees. These are committees that are like really top down, right? So what the chair says is much more important than what any individual member says, whatever people will tell you. So the chair is hugely important. So the chair, we started in the assembly. Anyone know who the chair currently of the Assembly Housing Committee is? Matt Haney from San Francisco, right? So Matt Haney is one of our targets right here. Who's the assembly chair of the Judiciary Committee? Anybody know? Any assembly? Kalra. Ash Kalra from San Jose. Okay, wait a second. Do we have members here? Now we've talked about 2 communities with key legislators, San Francisco, San Jose. Do we have any members from San Francisco or San Jose? Right here? Do we have our San Jose people here? South Bay CLT? We have really, right over here? We have, okay, they're presenting next door. Really well organized CLT in San Jose, right? Okay. Now we talked about at the beginning the leaders of the chambers. Does anyone remember who they were? The speaker and pro tem. Again, sorry to say, not really a democratic body, right? What the speaker and pro tem think is really important. If they hate something, it's not going to go anywhere. If they love it and are championing it, we're going to do good. So as we talk about targeting, I would always say the speaker is always the target. The pro tem is always the target. Your committee chairs, in this case, we're going to start with Matt Haney and Ash Kalra, always targets. And this is what we would call in the Midwest Academy tradition a primary target, right? They have the power to give us what we want at particular stages. But we don't always have a lot of influence over our targets. So there's a concept called a secondary target, which is who does your target listen to, right? If you can't get to your target directly, who do they listen to? So now, to Shakina's point, all of the committee members are definitely secondary targets, right? They're definitely people who can influence that committee vote. So we want to focus on them as well. So now it's not just 2 chairs, right? Now it's 10, 15, 20, 25 members, right? And we're not going to do this today in the interest of time, but we start hitting a lot more of your communities because they're sitting on those committees, okay? And one last point I want to make. We could do this whole analysis out and you might find, well, nobody from my community is on, the right committee. So, maybe my community doesn't matter. And I would say a couple of things. One, members of these committees change frequently, year over year. There's new leadership, people get elevated, people move on. We also have term limits in California. So people in positions of power are always moving out because they got term limited. So your freshman legislator who may not be on a powerful committee, who may not have a lot of influence, in 2 years, in 3 years, in 4 years, they may very well be the chair of the most important committee. They might be the speaker. They might be the pro tem. And there's always churn, which means every single one of your legislators can be an important target in our work. And so, of course, we need to go to Sacramento. We're going to lobby. We're going to go testify at hearings. But for someone like a Matt Haney, someone like an Ash Kalra, they're elected by their constituents. They're accountable to their constituents. And what happens in those communities is going to influence what they're thinking, what their priorities are as they go to Sacramento, as they go to that committee. So when I go there, when Danny goes there, we can do good work. I think we're both pretty good at our jobs. But if they haven't heard anything from their community, if they don't know what's going on at the San Francisco CLT, right? If they don't care about community ownership, if they don't believe their constituents care about rent control, it doesn't matter what we do. We're not going to change that ourselves. So what happens in the community is going to drive this process much more than what any of us do in Sacramento. So I'm going to leave you with that, and I'm going to hand it over to Jessica to lead our small group discussion, which is now really about the how. So now we know a little bit about this. How do we wield that influence collectively?
Thank you. Hi again, everyone. So now we're going to get into like the nitty gritty, right? We want to hear from you all and remind ourselves, right? How do we build power from the ground up? How do we exercise our power at the local level so that we can influence or have influence at the state level, and begin developing those relationships with key decision makers, right? And so what we're going to do now is we're going to do an activity. I'm going to ask folks if they can get into about groups of 5 or 6 and form groups of 5, or let's get folks to group up in like five or 6 groups of 5. So we're going to have 5 groups, 5. Yeah, I can't say it. It's early. Sorry. And so what I want you guys to do is really think through a few questions, about 4 questions. And those 4 questions are, oh, yes. So what are local activities that you have or could use to influence electeds? And think about these key decision makers that you all want to influence, right? What are challenges that you have or might have as you face electeds in your process of helping influence them, right? And then also, what resources or skills would help you grow your influence over these people, right? Think about relationships, think about activities and tactics that you all might exercise in order to build that power or influence those decision makers, or what other resources and skills you all might need, right, in order to gain that. And so, should we get folks to count off, or? Oh, yes. And we're gonna, in each group is gonna have a sticky note. You guys can just write down your answers and put them on each of the butcher papers. And then once you guys are done with your questions, we'll kind of gather around, do a bit of a report back, and try to take away key themes that we see maybe in different areas and different groups. And then we'll close out. Does that make sense? Do folks have any questions about that activity and what we're doing? No, we're good. Do we want to count off, or? Yeah, so if folks want to count off 1 to 5, and then we'll have maybe group 1 over here, group 2. Have numbers on them, so okay. One is there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sounds good. All right. So Christine, I'll start. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, perfect.
Remember 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yes. Yeah. So we'll do 15 minutes and then come back and do a report back. Thanks, folks.
Okay, all right, cool. Maybe we can just rotate and say.
Yeah, I'm just gonna.
Remind you of the-
Hi. Yeah. I can write. I have one idea. Yes. For that one. Like a town hall. Okay. Go ahead and mark. Oh, yeah. Es mi capa, no. Maddie, do we have markers?
There's not
Or just
markers, but
pens?
there's pens. So yeah, write in the sticky note, put it up.
Ah. Okay. You said town hall, right? Just put MTS for meeting.
Just basic stuff like letters and office visits. Yeah, calls work. Maybe you would have like a phone bank.
Office visits?
Yeah.
Petitions? Oh, yeah. Like social media campaign? Oh, so like
Is that like different?
that's like when you attend the meetings.
Yeah, like you need to go public comment and show up as a big.
Yeah.
Showing up in numbers to do public comment.
I'm sure they have some sort of, what do they call it? Constituent meeting? You could probably comment at that.
What do they call it? Open, they call it open comment, no?
Public comment?
Public comment sections.
I'm just changing it.
Maybe actions. Like when they hold actions out in front of a council meeting. Constituents. What did you do, constituent?
constituent meetings. You know, in Orange County, Borre, I forgot what his actual title is, but he used to actually come in and do coffee mornings with, and that was the first time I actually had seen them. They email you, they send you like a letter. We would get the emails in our inboxes, like, and he, remember my husband wrote to him back. I'm all like, oh, it's probably gonna go to like a random inbox. No, they responded. And I was like, oh, this is like the first time I've seen an actual rep like do the work of reaching out to the community versus the other way around. It was interesting.
They seem to do that more often because I had like 4 politicians send me emails. That's kind of like the new thing.
Well, I was like, oh, it's working. They actually wanted to set up a meeting, and like his whole, because he's a veteran, so he's like, you're already reducing housing. Period. Housing, like it was a whole list thing, and he actually got like a whole list of like resources. And I was like, dang, that's the first time I've ever seen that. But that was. Did you want to rotate or no? No, I mean, like we're gonna rotate to different sections, right?
Oh, no, just stay here. These are your 3 questions. Everyone has the same.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so try to get to all 3 questions if you can.
Then we're gonna want to move to the next one.
I have one question for y'all. Have you guys ever invited elected officials to like do a tour of your site or speak at an event? It might not be like you're asking them to take action on the bill, but it's sort of like building a relationship and having them get to know you and your work. Has anyone ever done that?
I think we've done like a collective thing, not an individual thing, where like we target just one politician, but more like where we ask the politician, like, hey, there's this thing, I'll show up.
Sometimes it's about just building the relationship so that they know you, and like maybe next time you're gonna ask them to take a specific action if they already know what you do. So think about some kind of.
I mean, if you get along with the politician, you can always do like GOTV work. But it depends on if you get along with the politician.
Sorry, get back to my
Posted a hub for our social media.
Oh.
And we, for like the president, we invite them to like speak on it. But I think like we like council district, supervisor. Those are usually what we have. Like level that.
So more,
Yeah, more
local.
Yeah, when it comes to like.
Hyper local. Hyper local. Oh, like, ¿cómo se llaman esas cosas? Just community events.
Yeah, community events, maybe a resource fair or a celebration.
A block party.
Block party.
A veces siento que hacen más, responden más to cultural events.
Also like maybe like a general site visit to like the office. We tried inviting ourselves over to our office.
I should get the people to go now. So I would put up this one.
I don't think it ended up being
Yeah. Let's move.
No response?
Time in advance. Oh, go to page and fill out the form and
One of the things we found that's been troublesome is when there's other groups working at cross purposes or opposing that are progressive, like unions. Like unions are very much about jobs and creating jobs. So sometimes they put restrictions on certain bills that make them hard for us to pass or for us to get support. So, but it's hard because technically, well, the way most people see it, you know, unions are on our, supposed to be on our side, but it doesn't always work out that way.
they said, oh, we need to listen. Ellos escuchan más rentan las propiedades.
No, los, ajá.
Oh, landlord. They listen more to the homeowner than the renter.
They want to listen for
Yeah.
I think this is the challenge. They not on the side of the community member. They want to listen. And they go with the pay for the
La gente con el dinero.
Like some initial work, follow up, and then leading to action.
The other thing was we was a meeting with them. They're not available, but they sent some people from their office and they said, oh, just for taking notes. And said, oh, let me pass this message. I remember Senate member and we not speak directly with them and we don't have
El acceso to the, okay.
we don't know how he would know.
Like other staff. We've got about 7 minutes.
The staff said, oh, we have different recommendations for him, but we don't know how to find out.
Maybe we can move on to what resources or skills would help you grow your influence. Well, that's really well written. Okay.
I think specifically like base building. You need to build up your base if you want to have an influence.
Maybe this whole power mapping.
Yeah. Power mapping. Oh. Then you know who to target.
Yeah, because my people like are really good organizers, but then they're like, oh, they get the people, and then it's like that bridge to cross to the elected official.
The landscape, right?
It's just like what they did right here. So,
Yeah, so you identify who is it that you need to target. I think landscape does more of a broader of like, what's the climate, who are the key players, no? I spend a minute, that's, but landscape, even some people don't even do the landscaping mapping either, so landscape. Lo pongo.
People fall on like if they're supported on a certain issue or if they're not, they're against it.
I mean, money. Having a volunteer is great, but having a staff, they can do so much more. I mean, it's hard when you're just volunteering because you got a regular job, you got a regular life. But when they're staff, they can do a lot more. So you need money for that.
I'm gonna do both. I feel like just in general.
The money when if we planning to visit in Sacramento, we need money to pay for transportation or
Under the table.
So resource.
So maybe I think you said sometimes we need to support from unions. Maybe we need to make this building relationship to get the support.
It's a coalition building.
We need to get the union members to influence pressure
So the report out, so then we don't have to go out. Since we have a mic too, people know.
That works. Okay. I'm glad you left out concurrence because that's confusing to people.
It's like, but you know, people don't need to know all of that. You know, it's like,
unless your bill is super fucking contentious, concurrence.
but that's
is
where
just
like
fine.
we're gonna help. You know what I mean? So people don't need to know.
And you also didn't say anything about like how sometimes the committee consultant is the one, because if you have a chair, not in these two instances, but sometimes you have a committee chair that just doesn't know what the hell he or she is talking about.
Then we can,
Yeah.
you know, do that deeper. But yeah, I remember the first bill I ever worked on. We had this step in Massachusetts called enactment. Once they vote on a bill, they need to take a procedural vote called enactment. They actually send it to the governor's desk. I didn't know this. Like I was the lobby.
Yeah.
And so we got it both passed, and I was like, yeah. There was a little blurb in the paper about the bill, and it said, well, you know, it's like this little one paragraph thing, and then it said, bill now needs to go for enactment. And I read that, and I was like, what the fuck's enactment? I don't know what that is.
I know, panic. Your clients are calling you. Oh. No, currently, like where the bills are, it says presented to the governor, and then there's a link to governor's comments. And I had a client like texting me in the middle of the night, like a 10 o'clock at night. She's like, "What? Where are the comments? I don't see his comments." I'm like, "He's on the East Coast dealing with environmental issues. It's just a procedural."
All right, everyone, let's start bringing it back. Finishing up your last thought. If I can get folks to raise their hand when they're completely silent. Nice. I see some folks. Okay, all right. So what we're gonna do now is I wanna hear, we wanna hear from you all, right? So in your groups, maybe we'll start off with group number 1.
Yes. And here, like, what are some key highlights that you guys came up with when answering these questions, right? And then we'll kind of keep it moving and hear from other folks. But yeah, what stood out when talking with your group?
So for local activities, we talked a lot about like having community meetings and providing workshops, literacy, and like really any opportunity to bring all stakeholders into a conversation. For the challenges, we talked about backroom deals, undermining community efforts, technical details of policies that gets lost with committee consultants, staying on narrative. And then for like resources, we have like relationship, not wearing my glasses, sorry. Relationships to electeds on a personal level, ensuring CLT board members are representative of and are community members, having strong stories, code switching, being able to go in and talk to the electeds, and then being able to come back and provide the feedback to the community. That's very important. Thank you.
All right, give it up to group number 1. Those challenges really, they hit home, right? Like those are often things that we constantly hear about, but really like making sure that we're building those relationships and those connections, that's key, right? Okay, I hear a lot of voices over here. I'm assuming y'all are excited. Awesome. So group number 2, what are some key highlights from your guys' discussion?
Yes, we had a very fruitful discussion. I think we shared a lot about for like resources and skills that help us to grow our influence. I think like building the courage, building political education out, really focusing on like tearing down silos and recognizing like because we're so siloed in our work and so individualized, we oftentimes create the wrong assessments, which leads to us having poor strategy, poor tactics, and then when things don't work, we act surprised. For what local activities we could have to influence our local electeds, we talked about a variety of tactics like coalition building again, looking at who like endorses them, who their funders are, who they answer to. And then for the last one, when challenges we face, we said, Okay, so we talked about how electeds sometimes don't have the same alignment of values as us, and that we need to have like really strong communication when it comes to communicating the issues that our people care about, but also with electeds, and also like the need to document. I think that was stressed a lot. Like we don't have good documentation a lot of times, and so yeah, the leaders are like writing like really well written like messaging with photos to show our people what we're doing and how we're building power to call them in. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Give it up for group number 2. And what I heard a lot here too, right, is like the courage piece is really important, right? How do we build up that courage? But then also this point of reflection, right? Like as advocates, like we really need to have moments where we're reflecting deeply on like what lessons we've learned. That coalition building too can kind of broaden that scope, right? So good job, y'all. Okay, all right. So let's move it up to group number 3. Y'all are quiet. What's going on? All right. So what are some, again, same question as other folks. What are some key highlights that you all came up with in your discussion? And who's going to be the spokesperson? Not everybody's looking at me. Okay, good. Nice.
Yeah. So I think a big thing that we were really engaging with were how to like empower folks, like how to really get them to like show out in numbers, and that way like to affect elected officials. We were really like talking about like what things look like locally and at the state level, affecting, influencing not just the electeds, but the people around them. We talked about like their partners, their husbands, their wives, like talk to them, see if they have like more of a political leaning that's in our favor, more alignment, we could talk to them. I think we also talked about showing out in numbers to all the things that they offer, whether that be hearings, town halls, office hours, their their own officials, their own representatives that they send out to communities, their offices, making sure that we're showing out numbers to the spaces where they're looking for input. I think a really big thing that we talked about were like resources and skills to help out. So like, it's like a, what is it? It's like a privilege and an availability to come to like stuff like this and to be able to learn. So we were like, okay, how do we get like stipends, possibly food, child security? Yeah. So how do we get people to really show out and have their voices heard, and also like not get the same people that are available and have this opportunity to come out and show out for electeds? So looking at all of those, and that in itself being the challenge, like how do we get new people, new faces? That way it's not the same people coming out, and which can lead to things like burnout.
Thank you. Give it up to group number 3. And this is great, right? Like you all really honed in on the power building at the very, very local granular level, right? And being able to like sustain that and inviting electeds into that space. And if they don't, calling that shit out, right? Like that's important too. And that's also a tactic, right? So thank you all. Oh, sorry. All right, so group number 4, same question as other folks. Key highlights, and then who's gonna be the spokesperson? Chayo? All right.
It's me. So hi, everyone. So quick snippets for activities where we can influence. So a lot of the similar things were public comment, town halls, inviting them to your events. Also building a connection with local officials. I think that was one key highlight, was like really focusing like super hyper local, so that you can invite them into your spaces and they can see the work that you're doing as a community. And that way you can hold them more accountable. I think the challenges that we discussed around that was that there is sometimes a lack of follow through. A lot of times on the elected official side, that there's sometimes even the lack of access. Like they have this tendency to send you their reps, and then they take notes and then report back and like nothing. And then, but a big part on the community side would be planning and outreach in advance. I think a lot of times we're really good at responding, and it doesn't give ample enough time to actually plan, reach out, have that dialogue, and invite last minutes, and sometimes that also doesn't work out. And then also developing more of like building the base, which was a big conversation on how do you build a base and how do you build now with social media, incorporating social media. There's like a lot of folks that's now their sources of news and interactions, storytelling, and then the challenges would be encouraging the community to do the storytelling at these events so that they can get their stories heard. And then for the resources, we were like, well, addressing some of the things would be like, for those who are first coming into the field, is how do you build a base? How do you get involved, the most affected communities involved? What are the best practices that other organizations have been doing for a while can share? Resources for lobbying. A lot of it was also funding, money, right? Not just for getting out and doing it, but also like sometimes your volunteers volunteer a lot, but it is just volunteers. So they have lives and work, so money to be able to hire staff. And then learning to like power map, learning to do the landscape mapping. Sometimes we are really good at responding and organizing, but it's the long-term on the like the long-term goals that we need to like also shift the focus to. Yeah, that's.
All right, give it up to group number 4. All right, and this is really great, right? Again, focusing on the very granular level, and also I really like that you guys brought up the like the activity or tactic of like social media, right? We heard from Maddie yesterday, like the use of social media is key. Electeds are on social media and they're looking at it pretty actively, right? So how do we tell our stories in a way that like really resonates? So good job, y'all. All right, I know we have like a couple more minutes left, so I'm gonna pass it over to group number 5. Any key highlights from your discussion?
I'll try to be quick. So I think a lot was covered, but I think the main thing we talked about here was like kind of layering our campaigns. So email and phone banking is kind of the more personal, like person-to-person communication, but then having larger events where the elected is invited or going to their elected organized events to talk about the issue. And then also using, sign-on letters or contacting media, local media, or using social media to amplify it. So on multiple layers, like having your issue be elevated to the elected in multiple ways. And then challenges that we might face, I think we mostly talked about the difficulty of competing against highly resourced, more powerful interests, and then also our, lack of power as like housing organizers, and then fighting against maybe like the inertia, the status quo of incumbent officials who've been in politics for a long time and are difficult to influence as challenges. And then for resources or skills we'd want to build, training sessions for how to run for office or how to be more involved in local politics, resources to establish like 501c4s or having lobbyists, like just investing into those opportunities. And then learning how to form stronger cross-coalition relationships with labor and healthcare and environmental justice groups, and adapting our messaging and framing to electeds depending on what their interests are, and learning how to talk about housing in ways that might be of interest to them. That's it.
Thank you, thank you. All right, give it up for group number 5. I really appreciate everybody's input in today's session. I do want to put it back on y'all for one more time, for one last time, I should say. But and does anybody want to come up to the center and just talk about, or like give maybe 1 or 2 words of like what you all are taking from today's session? Maybe 2 or 3 folks, brave souls, can come to the middle. Or not, I can also take the mic to you all. What are you guys taking away from today's session? Any overlap, key themes? All right.
I think that we understand what we need to do. It's just having the resources, not only like toolkits of best practices, but funding resources to be able to go to Sacramento. I know with the network, we've done Zoom meetings, and then a couple times we go to Sacramento, but like resources or funding to go to Sacramento so that we have the constituencies, right, that are impacted, and they're in the district, right? So I think that's the other thing. But the other thing is we have to be able to continuously hire organizers that are going to be available after work hours. And a lot of people, they want to be with their families. So we do have to be more competitive in salaries to keep them in the long term. And then the residents that we're asking to come to meetings, right? It's after work hours. So we were sharing about stipends. So just making sure that, because I think we understand what we need to do, but we need the funding as well to be doing the scholarships to go to Sacramento or whatever. Because it can't just be the lobbyists, right? Representing us going to Sacramento. Thank you.
Thank you, Maribel. And that's key, right, to building out that long-term sustainability, right? We got to take care of us and each other in the process too. Anybody else? Some key takeaways?
Very short.
Kudos and dittos to everything that was said, but Jessica, you kind of said it, it's the work, and burnout is really real. So we have to take care of ourselves. We have to continue to find the motivation and support each other in the relationships that we make.
Maybe one more person? Yeah, go for it.
I just want to say one thing to wrap up and just remind, one of our premises for this conversation was what happens in your communities, more important what happens in Sacramento. So we know there's challenges, we know there's lack of resources, but people generated all kinds of really cool ideas about things we can do. Some of them are really simple and low resource, right? And the other thing I want to say is that I feel so lucky because I get to like work on state policy all day, every day. So I'm a resource to y'all. Danny is a resource to y'all. We're working with her. So if you guys are looking for support, advice, resources, materials, you want someone to work with, your staff, your board, your residents, just to have a conversation, I would love to hear from you. I would love to get a call or an email or a text from you. I'm serious. That would be so exciting, right? So the network is a resource to support y'all. We can't do it. We can't work in your communities because I know my community. I don't know your community, right? So you got to do the work in your community, but we're here to support you. So please, please, if you don't know how to reach me, just go on the network website. All my info's there, and please reach out to me.
All right, thanks, everyone. All right, well, we hope that you could take what you all gained from today's session back to your communities. Again, utilize the California Network, CLT network as a resource, and also like build connections with one another, right? Like we all heard from different regions today, like what they're doing at a very local level. Like let's connect with each other, right? And see what we can build out.